joke that I like. I have no idea if it has any relevance to the rest of what transpires, but I'm moved to tell the story. Okay. You are to transport yourself back in time to the Middle East several thousand years ago. And you imagine that you are a recruit in the Roman army, and you are standing next to a well-established centurion. You're holding a crowd back on the street. And you look at see one end of the street, moving slowly along, is a man carrying a cross who's being whipped, spit at, insulted, etc. And as a young recruit, you ask the experienced centurion, what terrible crime has this person committed that he's being treated in this fashion? Did he commit murder? No, something worse than murder. Centurion thinks again. Did he commit treason? No, there's something worse than treason. What could be worse than committing murder or treason? And the answer is he was a great teacher, but he never published. The reason I wanted to segue with that, or in one sense, our honored guest today is someone who has published a great deal. But you always wonder, when you start something new, am I going to be serious about this and for how long? Is anybody else going to take this seriously? Am I going to be recognized at some point? Is there any kind of value in what I'm doing? Or will I be written off as a crank or highly gifted eccentric, but nevertheless somebody who didn't do very much? Well, our honoree today is somebody who I think is really responsible for the establishment of the field of corporate social responsibility. Bringing it into existence at a time when it was a marginalized area of interest within the business field, and has really spent his entire professional life making this into something very important. David Crowther, among other things, has actually written more books than Sam has, I think, 40. He's published more articles than Sam, 400. Sam, I don't think you've done 400 articles, have you? No. David has, of course, been the editor of a journal on corporate social responsibility. He has supervised, I think by now, hundreds of dissertations on CSR. He has given his time and advice to literally thousands of people around the world. And I'm just going to provide you with some information about how dedicated he is to trying to get the message across. I understand that in the early part of this century, the 21st century, he was going to Spain and decided he didn't want a translator, so he taught himself Spanish. Once he taught himself Spanish, he then taught himself some Portuguese so that he could also go to Portugal and talk to people much better than just doing it through translators, and is studying Turkish and probably at this point is working on some other languages as well. From a personal point of view, David's been very important to me, and not only allowing me to enter into his world, but actually helping me to see that corporate social responsibility is a very, very important academic area. It's not just something we do because we're clever. It's something we do because we think it's important. And I think it's well past the time that he be recognized for his contributions. I'm going to ask him to come up and accept a small gift as a token of our appreciation. He's the first recipient of the Global Corporate Governance Institute Annual Award. David?
Okay, thank you, Nick. When I first became a full professor, the dean said to me, okay, you're a full professor now, what would you like to be professor of? Without thinking about it, I said, corporate social responsibility. And she looked at me and said, are you sure? Do you want to go and think about it? No, I didn't want to go and think about it. I knew at the time that's what I wanted to focus on in my career. At the time, there were no professors of corporate social responsibility anywhere in the world. Although there was one colleague of mine who was on the point of leaving the same university as me to be Professor of Corporate Social Responsibility somewhere else. But it was a brand new field, and the first thing I had to do was tell people what corporate social responsibility was. I used to go and tell people my field's corporate social responsibility, and said, "Oh, what's that?" I went and talked to business people, and they said, "Oh, what's that?" But over time, over a few years, I found things were changing. People knew what corporate social responsibility was, and the response I got from business people then when I went to talk to them is, "Very nice idea, we can't afford to do it." Because back then it was considered to be a cost to business, not a benefit to business. Times have changed now though, haven't they? Everybody knows what corporate social responsibility is. Everybody's got some plan about corporate social responsibility. Every business has got some kind of strategy about it, and the strategy involves genuine action, not just cynical behaviour to get effects. There's genuine action about corporate social responsibility, and it's a question. So things have changed a lot as over the time I've been involved in corporate social responsibility, and similarly now things have moved on to concern about sustainability, and firms have all got some kind of strategy about sustainability, but it seems to me there's as many definitions of sustainability as there are people defining it. Nobody's got a clear idea what it is. But when we look at corporate governance, we find a very different picture, don't we? Well, in corporate governance, we've had plans, we've had reports, we've had strategies for 30 years. But what do we find? We continue to find bad practice, we continue to find all kinds of bad behaviour that keeps surfacing, even though we've gone through a global financial crisis where one of the first things was said was we've got to address the problem of corporate governance. We still find problems with corporate governance. When we talk about corporate governance, we also find there's a problem, because we talk about corporate governance and we say it's a relationship between a firm and its stakeholders. Go and talk to managers and they say it's a relationship between a firm and its investors. So we're not talking about the same thing. So that strikes me as a problem, really, because for us as academics, unless we can relate to the business world and have something to say to the business world, what are we doing here? And if we're not talking about the same thing, we've got a problem, haven't we? So it seems to me, as far as corporate social responsibility is concerned, we are talking about the same thing. We're talking about the same language. We can interact and relate to business. When we look at corporate governance, we can't, because we're not talking about the same thing. So it seems to me that's an area that we as academics need to address. An understanding of what corporate governance is, an understanding about the relationship between a firm and all of its stakeholders, not just its investors. So it seems appropriate that a conference by the Global Corporate Governance Institute takes on board this need to define the field and agree that definition with the business world, and that's what we should be about. Thank you.
You're excused until 2:30.